In conversation with Leah Lindeman, Feisty Latina, a lover of classic literature, history, both Leah Lindeman graduated with honors from the Institute of Children's Literature. She is the author of the Canadian Reminiscence Series. She lives with her husband and seven children in the idyllic countryside of Eastern Ontario, where she daydreams daily of the Scottish Highlands. And on today's episode of our interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Leah Lindeman. How are you doing, Lee?
I'm good. I'm really happy to be here with you, Peter. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very fine as well. It's lovely to have you on the show today. I'm quite excited.
Thanks. Me too.
Yeah, and again, I've been following your channel for quite a lot of while, so it's quite amazing to have you on P English Literature today.
Yes. I've been following you for a while too, almost ever since I started on YouTube. So it's a
Thank
nice
you.
coming together of two worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Lee, I want to first say that I love the broad description of Unblown Melody when I read through it on Amazon. Getting to know it was set in 1943 during the World War II got me curious as to how this book came about. Now, I'd like to ask you, what inspired you to write Unborn Melody, and how did you approach the creative process?
Well, I got the idea, first of all, from this book that my father-in-law lent me, which was called The 6 Years' War. And
Wow.
basically, it's a book that has personal stories from the 6 years of World War II. And there are personal stories from the war front, from the home front, accidental deaths, personal stories from the Navy, the
Wow.
Air Force, ground soldiers, every single facet of World War II history. And the one of the last sections of the book was on the Canal pipeline, which was this oil pipeline that the American Army was building in Canada
Wow.
because they were concerned that the Japanese were going to invade from the west. And so they built a highway from Dawson Creek, BC to Fairbanks, Alaska, but they needed the fuel to fuel their jets and their tanks and all the war equipment, right? So
Mm.
they found this oil well in Norman Wells, Northwest Territories, and they
Wow.
built this pipeline. And there were maybe just five personal stories from this little section in this massive book about World War II stories, which intrigued me that there wasn't a lot told about it. It's this
Wow.
little piece of history that's kind of secret. No one really knows about it.
Mm.
And those pieces of history intrigue me the most. So I went to dig deeper into, okay, what was this pipeline about? Why did they build it? Who was involved in the building of this pipeline? Almost no one knew about the building of this pipeline. It's
Wow.
even discussed and debated how much the Canadian government knew about this
Mm.
pipeline.
Mm.
So kind of that all intrigued me. And then as I was researching everything about this pipeline, the story, the fictional story that's set during this true event in history kind of started coming together in my mind about this woman who goes up north to work for the American Army as a typist.
Wow.
And what would her life have been like, or the lives of other women who went up there in a male dominated field
Mm.
in the middle of nowhere in the northern wilderness.
Wow. This sounds quite captivating to me, really. I love the sound of it. So thank you so much for sharing. It's quite lovely to get an idea into the snippet of how the whole story started and also about your creative process. That sounds amazing to me. Thank you. And now I'd like to ask you, what inspired you to write in the theme of historical fiction? And could you tell us more about the Canadian Reminiscence series? Also, how far more are you taking us in the series? Should we expect more from the story?
I started writing historical fiction because I love history. If you
Wow.
give me one subject I'm extremely passionate about, it's history. I
Wow.
know a lot of no, sorry, not Canadian history, American history. I know a lot of
Yeah.
world history, ancient world history, but I don't know that much about Canadian history. And so I
Mm.
thought, what a great way to research my own country's history by writing books on it.
Absolutely.
And when you write historical fiction, you have to research well. You have to have a good, solid foundation of what was going on during the time the mentality of people during that time. So there's no way you can half do the work. It needs to be fully done. So
Yeah.
that's why I write Canadian historical fiction specifically. The Canadian Reminiscence Series, okay, bear with me. It's a little bit of a unique concept. I've told this concept to many people and they've never heard anything like it. So this is the concept. There are 13 provinces and territories in Canada in total.
Mm.
Each standalone novel focuses on one province or territory during a certain historical time period, and each province gets its duology. So it has a main standalone novel, and then it gets a sequel novella, which is about 10 to 40,000 words. So it's smaller than a novel. So it's basically a series made out of duologies. I've done 3 so far. This is the 3rd standalone novel.
Yeah.
I have 10 more to go.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's going to take a lot of my lifetime to get through this series, but it's something I'm super passionate about. I'm dedicated to it. There's the possibility I might throw in other projects alongside this separate, but for now, it's just the Canadian historical fiction.
It's actually powerful. It's quite lovely to know. Sounds like, you've got quite a lot of works ongoing already. And I like you to show the sample of the book to the camera from the first to the second. Beautiful, Unborn Melody. Such an amazing cover, even.
Thank you. I got my best friend from elementary school. She's a photographer, and she's done all the covers for my 3 standalone novels. And I just love her vision. She has a great way of just understanding what I want to see on the cover, the theme, the feel. She just does an amazing job with it.
Yeah, I love knowing about the theme of war. Yeah, and that of other things encapsulated in it. Sounds quite amazing to me. Thank you for incorporating that actually in a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'd like to ask you, for readers who haven't read Unborn Melody yet, and without giving much information away, can you discuss the themes or messages you were hoping to convey through your writing, and now you integrated them into the narrative? Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. I cover the theme of human brokenness and how unconditional love can restore that to a new life that is full of meaning and grace and love. My main character, she's probably the least, I have 3 main characters so far, and this one is the least like me. She's all of us can be selfish. All of us can have moments of pride, but she's just extra. She's extra selfish. She's extra proud. But she also comes from a broken place in her childhood where she was hurt deeply. And so she goes up north and she's looking for an escape. She's looking to make her new life. And yet the choices that she makes catch up to her, and she receives the consequences of them. And in comes this person that she doesn't care for. She doesn't want anything to do with. And this person is there to show her true love, unconditional love, not necessarily romantic love, but just a love that transcends whatever BS she throws at him. His love transcends that all and covers whatever hurt she has, to the point that she becomes this flower that's slowly blooming, that's slowly willing and able to open up to a love that doesn't go away, a love that is there to stay. And that is the theme of the book, is unconditional love. So how can we love others unconditionally, and how can we allow ourselves to be loved unconditionally?
Interesting. Wow. I love this. I love your answers to this question, really. And picking up from what you said, your answer to the question want to make me to ask you about your characterization. Do you have some characters that you love, that you admire to the core? And also, do you have others that you hate? Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I almost hated this character. I severely disliked this character. But I think it's an interesting time crafting a character you really don't like,
Mm,
but you want them to be compelling so that your reader sticks with them, so
yeah.
that your reader knows that there is something at the end. Just bear with this character and you will see some kind of growth. And all my characters, I
Mm,
want them to grow in some way. They don't have to be perfect. And that's not what life is about, right? None of us are perfect,
yeah.
but each of us are growing on our own journeys, on our own
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah.
And that's what my characters are all about. The
That's,
one that I really love the most is the character for my second book, Wisps of Gold. She's
oh,
probably the most like me. She's very spunky, adventure driven, very confident, but her too,
wow.
she has some things that she needs to work through. And again, bringing that character arc to life, having other characters speak into her life, the situations she goes through
Mm.
that make her grow into a better woman than she was before.
Yeah, it's lovely. I just feel like sometimes it's nice, though it's a very funny question, but it's nice
Yeah.
to ask authors sometimes. Did you have a favorite character? Do you have one that you hate?
That's
Knowing
true.
that, they created all of those characters. Well, I just wanted to
Yeah.
have an idea to know if you have one that you love so much and if you have one that you hate. So it's a kind of a very
Yeah.
funny question, actually.
It's true, but it's very relevant to this. And yeah,
Mm,
if there's a character you hate, you have to at least believe. You may not have to believe in them yourself, but you have to have another character that believes in them to keep
absolutely.
you grounded and tethered to that character,
Yeah.
which is what this is all about.
Yeah. Thank you. I love your answer to that, actually. And now I'd like to ask you, Lee, how do you think your personal experiences or beliefs influence the characters and event in your book?
Mm, that's probably my favorite question so far.
Yeah,
I think all of us create with a sense of what we've gone through in our experiences, and our beliefs will
absolutely.
always touch what we touch and what we create. And
Absolutely.
the theme of unconditional love is very, very dear to my heart.
Mm.
I'm a believer in Jesus.
Oh,
He has saved me from my sin. That is my faith. So I know that no matter what I do, no matter how much I go in the wrong way, he is
mm.
always there to forgive me. He is always there to love me. And
Mm.
so just taking that personal faith of mine and putting that in a book that others can read, that they can see the brokenness of those characters, and then seeing that unconditional love take place in a very practical, tangible way
Mm.
was very dear to my heart.
Mm.
And it's just a picture. It's a picture of God's great love for each and every one of us.
Mm. Wow, I love your answer to this. Sounds very deep, quite introspective to me. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, Lee, apart from Canadian Reminiscence in a book series, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on?
Well, I was a contributing author to another book called My Journey, My Journal, which was a bestseller on Amazon. It's basically a book that there's a 25 word of wisdom from an author, and then there's a space where the person who bought the book could write down their thoughts and what they
Gotcha.
think on that person's words of wisdom. So I have
Yeah.
one page along with other contributing authors. So that was kind of a group project that I was a part of.
Oh,
Right now, as I said, the Canadian Reminiscence Series is the bulk project in the works right now. But I do have ideas to write a fantasy-based series in South America because that is my
oh,
heritage. My father is Bolivian, and that's the nationality that I feel the closest to. So I would love to kind of write something, do a grand fantasy series. I've always loved fantasy. I just never had the
oh.
idea for a fantasy, but then it came to me, and now I'm just kind of in the research stage. I'm researching Bolivian myths, Bolivian legends, Bolivian
Mm,
mythical creatures, and just kind of seeing how we can start setting up this magical world. What would the system, what would the world building look like? So it's all just simmering and boiling in here right now. and we'll see when it comes out.
Yeah. I love the sound of that, actually. I love the sound of
Yeah.
that. And now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Are there any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing the book and also ever since it got published?
Sure. Well, I'd say that, once you write one book, it's easier with the others, but it's not necessarily true. Every
Mm.
book is unique and every book has its own challenges, especially if you're dealing with different themes and different characters. Every character wants his or her own say in the matter. So it's always going to be different. There's always going to be different challenges. This
Mm.
one was challenging because I do deal with the sad situation of abortion and
Oh.
what that entails in a woman's life. And I know it's a very strong subject. There's
Mm.
opposing views. People feel very strongly about it. So I was very worried to kind of touch that idea in a book, in a fictional book. And then Roe v. Wade happened in the US, and where they repealed now abortion, I believe, federally is no longer able to happen. Certain states can have it. It was
Mm.
just a very big political debates,
Wow.
and while I was writing this book, and but it was funny. After that happened, I was no longer worried because I
Mm.
knew that this isn't a political statement. This isn't a political book. It's a book about, as I said, human brokenness. And when you come to the situation of when a woman deals with, well, do I have an abortion? Do I not? I wanted to come at it from a place of compassion, of understanding both sides.
Mm.
And it's not an easy answer.
Mm.
And I wanted to come at it from a character who feels strongly one way and others around her feel strongly another way,
Wow.
specifically for the times of 1943, that was illegal. You could go
Mm.
to jail for attempting that. So at first I was worried about that because I felt like I was going to paint a big red X on my back and be targeted for it. But in the end, I just came to peace with it that, we need to talk about difficult subjects, but we need to come at it from a side that tries to understand both sides and more than anything shows human compassion and love. And
Mm.
that was a big, hard one with this. As for publishing, the publishing process, I love editing, so you write the first draft, and a lot of authors don't, but I do. I love to tear it apart and make it so much better than it was.
Mm.
And actually, with this book, I was adding in brand new scenes two,
Oh,
3 weeks before it was published because I had
interesting.
beta readers read it and they were giving me their thoughts. And then I read it one last time just to make sure it flowed. And during that read, I was adding in scenes, making things it was a little crazy, but it it was good. It was like, okay, now I feel like the book is complete. The
Yeah.
one thing that I usually hate in publishing process is formatting the book. For
Oh,
me, it's been a real big struggle, not necessarily for ebook, that's pretty simple, but for the paperback.
yeah,
And with
that's
my
true.
last two standalone novels, which was Redeemed from the Ashes and Wisps of Gold, it was a gigantic mess. The first one, yeah, it took me 2 weeks with
Wow.
I was using Microsoft Word and it was
Oh.
terrible. And I got to the point where I was crying, I was stressed, like it was so bad. And then I find out someone in my life, I was just mentioning this to her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm an expert with Microsoft Word. I can help you." Well,
Oh.
she fixed it in 10 minutes. So I wasted
Wow.
2 weeks getting frustrated and crying. And she just fixed it in 10 minutes. It was insane. With the
Wow.
second book, I knew I had her as a resource. So I
Wow.
kind of did as much as I could, probably for a week. And then, there's like two page numbers, 62 and 62. Obviously, that doesn't follow, right? And so I was like, please just fix it. And she fixed it again in 10 minutes. With
Wow.
this one, I really wanted to try to find a way to be able to do it on my own. I know she's
Oh,
there. I know she can help. So I went out on a limb and I thought maybe it's going to be easier on Pages, which is
yeah.
the document software for MacBook.
Oh,
And that's what I have. I have a MacBook. So I did it and it was super easy.
wow.
It was it was a dream. It was
Yeah.
great. So now I'm like, wow, I can do this on my own. I actually enjoy the process. I'm not stressed. I'm not crying over formatting this book. So that's
Wow.
yeah, but it was a story of triumph. That was a good thing. So
Yeah.
that now it's not something I hate. Now I like everything about the publishing process. But yes, with every book, it's going to have its each unique struggles that
Mm,
you struggle through. But you know what? The more that you overcome struggles, the more confident
absolutely.
you understand that you can find a way to overcome them, even though you don't know the answer, because we'll
Yeah.
never know the answer to everything.
Yeah.
But at least you know I have the ability to overcome
Mm,
this issue. And then you do. So
yeah. I love your take on this, actually. I love your answer to this question. Sounds quite lovely to me,
thank
and it's
you.
very fun. Thank you for sharing with us a short story. Quite lovely
Yeah.
to know.
Everyone, yeah, don't use Microsoft Word. It's the worst.
I understand. I understand. And I like to ask you, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with writing and publishing a book? What would you advise people in this category?
I have two pieces of advice.
Yeah.
One of them is to write every day,
Mm,
even though you can't manage a full hour of writing, at least write 10 minutes because it's 10 minutes closer to what you're aiming for. If you don't take small steps,
wow.
you're never going to get anywhere. And
Absolutely.
I guess maybe going into writing, you have this grandiose idea of, oh, I need to have this perfect desk and I need to sit down and I need to have my coffee and tea. And, it needs to be like all roses and magical. Well, that's not really always
Mm,
what it is. I mean, I have 7 kids at home. So
wow.
sometimes if I can't get it, if I can't wake up at 5, which usually that's my wake up time is 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I try
Oh,
to get, an hour and a half of uninterrupted writing time. But if for some reason I don't wake up at that time, the other time that I have is during the day with the 7 kids
oh,
running around. Maybe 2 of them are napping, but you work with what you have. And if you're
absolutely.
determined to tell the story
Yeah.
that is within you, you will find a way to write it.
Mm,
And probably the other thing is, well, who am I to write that story? Like for someone who has a story they want to write, but they don't think they're worthy to write it.
mm,
Well, know that you're the only person who can write it because each and every one of us are unique and we come at things from a different, unique perspective. I
absolutely.
can't write the story that you're ever going to write, and you can't write my stories. We each need to write
Yeah,
our own stories. And if we don't write
absolutely.
our own stories, no one's ever going to tell them.
Mm,
So everyone is worthy to write the story, either their own story or a story that has come to them, because if none else, it's never going to come to light. So
mm,
if you're the only one who can tell that story, maybe you're not good at writing at first. You
mm,
can practice, you can get better, you can learn, and
mm,
take that time during the week. Figure out a time when you are at school. If you don't know how to write, then take a writing course. If you don't know how to edit, take an
absolutely.
editing course. If you don't know how to publish, well, do your homework. Like you have to study, you have to research, you need to put at time for education is important. Even as adults, we're never
Yeah.
learning, right? Like you don't just go to school when you're young and then you never go to school again. When you're
Again.
an adult, school is life. You just need to take the time to educate yourself. So if it's me,
Yeah.
educate yourself. Take that time, like write it in your calendar.
Mm,
Thursday from 1 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's my time to educate myself on whatever I need to educate. And
wow.
then that will help you gain the confidence for whatever you want to do in
Wow.
writing.
Wow. Love your advice, really. It's very deep, very informative, and very educative. And I'm hopeful that viewers, even including myself, would love to utilize it. Thank you so
Okay,
much for sharing.
you're welcome.
Yeah. Now, Lee, in case we have some interested viewers who are currently watching this interview, I would love to get a copy of your book. On what platform is it available on for purchase?
So the paperback here is available on
Mm,
Amazon internationally, and then the ebook is available on Kindle, Kobo, Nook, basically all the Apple books, everything. So those two are available so far, and eventually the audiobook will come out. But right
wow.
now, I'm working on the audiobook for my first novel, Redeemed from the Ashes, which will come out
Wow.
this spring. So, but if
Beautiful.
people want to, find out what's going on with my works and they want to be in the know, they can always sign up for my newsletter at leahlindeman.com. And there
Mm.
you go. You'll know what's going on every step of the way.
Yeah, thank you. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Lee Lindeman's books directly on Amazon and also on other platform. I also left a link to a YouTube channel and other social media followings for possible followings. Yeah, so thank you so much, Lee, for accepting the
Awesome.
invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
It was great. I really, really enjoyed your questions and your camaraderie. It was a great time.
Yeah, it was fun to me too. Thank you.